Good morning, Sal. We're back, man. Back live like how we've always been. We're back from
Yeah,
California, man. Today
right.
we got an interesting topic. Well, we'll cover our California trip as well, but mainly, to give people the topic of what we're going to be doing, we're going to be
Right.
covering the Greg Scarpa and we're going to be covering Whitey Bulger. We're going to compare the two, and Sal's going to give his opinion on this. And he has an interesting story about Whitey Bulger. The article you just told me. I didn't know you were a part of that, but
Right. Right.
so I mean, yeah, they were both. One was in the Italian mob, one was in the Winter Hill gang. So they were mob is mob. I guess they have their different rules and everything, but they were both working with the government for so much, a long, long time, and on top of that, they were getting away with so much stuff and while getting
Right.
paid for the government. So,
Right. Right.
so yeah, I mean, what's your kind of opinion on these two guys?
Well, as the years went by, first of all, everybody listening should understand the government, our government, doesn't always release inside information. And when the FBI works with someone, they create reports called 302s. Now, if somebody wants 302s or they want to write in and get my FBI report, a lot of it, is cataloged, but year by year. And in the Bulger case and in the Scarpa case, both these guys worked undercover with the FBI. Ironically, if you'll look closely, you'll find that the Whitey Bulger FBI agent was under the microscope and wound up being charged, and also the FBI agent that worked with Scarpa, he got charged. Well, one of them got convicted, is in jail today. That was the Whitey Bulger FBI agent, and the other guy, the Scarpa FBI agent, guy named Del Vecchio, he actually beat his case. So a lot of this dirt starts to surface. And what the public probably wants to know is the stuff that is not public. And a lot of this stuff isn't public, but it takes years, for it to come out. And when you finally do right under the Freedom of Information Act, you can get reports on anybody. However, a lot of it will be blacked out. When we got an attorney friend of mine, she wrote to get my FBI, report, and a lot of the names are what they call redacted.
How
They were
come?
blocked. They were blocked out. You know.
Why
So
and what do they do that for?
I don't know exactly why they do it. Maybe they're concerned about some type of retribution. I'm not sure. But the government has a strange way of keeping records on people who have flipped, worked
Mhm.
undercover for the feds. But in these two cases, these guys were similar yet different. I think when I talked to Linda Scarper,
The
Greg
daughter.
Scarpa's daughter, and then I
Yes.
read her manuscript, and I happen to have it here. I'm in Vegas this weekend. I'm going to leave it with a friend of mine. She started to get interested in all this stuff. I go, you should read this manuscript. That's the book that Linda got published, which was called Hitman's Daughter. I said, the detail is amazing. And I think truly Scarper, he fashioned himself as a 007 character.
Yeah. I think that's what
Li-
I heard too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Linda said that. She said her father would talk to the family in the kitchen about killing last month, killing this month, who he was going to kill next month. It's pretty amazing. And then he said, "Look, I'm a 007 agent." I mean, the stuff he did, if you really dig into what he did in Mississippi, we could scratch our heads and say the government really used him to solve some crimes down there. There was some racial crimes, and then with Whitey Bulger, how different was he? However, he never once admitted that he worked for the FBI. And all those years, eventually he got caught in Santa Monica. I don't know how much, half a million, $1 million in the wall. And he's with this blonde woman that he was with for years, and she went to jail. There was nothing good that happened to either Whitey Bulger or Scarpa at the end. They both died of miserable deaths. So
Yeah.
while we're talking about them, we can explain some of what went on. Now, so far, no one's done a movie about Scarpa, but there have been several movies about Whitey Bulger, even though some of it was fictionalized. I think people who understand a little bit about crime and the mob realize that the Scorsese movie, The Departed, that character was pretty much Whitey Bulger.
Yeah. Well, see, you talk about them both dying. Whitey Bulger, he went on the run for such a, I don't know, 10, 20 years, maybe 15. I'm not for sure. I haven't looked into his whole case yet, but he got busted and then he went back to prison and then ended up getting, stabbed to death, beat to death or whatever by
Right, right.
some younger guys and stuff.
Yeah.
And then Greg Scarpa, he ended up, contracting AIDS through one of his men that he transferred blood to because he needed a blood transfusion. And so
Right,
the guy was a fitness guy and he was taking steroids and I guess dirty needles and shit, and then
right.
they didn't test it or whatever before they transfused it into him, and so he ended up getting that. And then so he ended up going to prison for like 5 or 10 years. He got convicted on a couple murders, but they let him out because of compassionate release. And then
Right.
he ended up having AIDS and still doing stuff anyway. I mean, that didn't
Yeah.
really stop. It didn't stop him because he talked in some of his interviews, man. He's like, ain't nothing going to stop me, kind of thing. And he's just like, he ain't worried about nothing. He's like, if, I accept this AIDS, I know it's a killer, but I'm just going to fight through it. Maybe I'll live enough to die through a heart attack is what he said. Maybe I'll get lucky is what he said, so, he had a weird, and of course, strange humor to him.
Yeah.
But no, we do have a super chat in here. I think it was related to it's a $5 one from Ryan. He had asked me last night. He had sent me this question. I think it's related to Whitey Bulger. I'll throw it on there and ask you, Sal. This is for you.
Okay.
Ryan says, let's see. I wanted to ask Sal if he ever knew or met Kevin Weeks, Whitey Bulger's right-hand man. Also, my cousin Joey was offered a job by Kevin Weeks, probably working for Whitey Bulger, selling drugs or something else like collecting money. Joey said he would get back to Kevin. He let his mouth run. My great-grandmother overheard him saying, Kevin Weeks offered me a job. Her response was to throw him a bit of a beating. She said, you're not going to work for Kevin. He's probably going to have you dealing in drugs.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, what are your thoughts on that?
I didn't know Kevin Weeks. I did read a lot about him, and eventually he came clean. I believe he gave the government information on exactly what he did with Whitey Bulger, the murders that they did. I mean, and the details are terrible. I mean, if you think that, I remember that there was 2 women named Deborah. He killed both of them, if you read about it. So I think Kevin Weeks, worked for Whitey in whatever capacity he needed him. I didn't know him, but another guy that, did some dirty deeds. I don't even know. Is Kevin Weeks even alive? I don't know.
I think so. I recently did the interview. Remember, I was telling you with the former Winter Hill Gang member, Sean Scott Hicks. I just posted it. So if you guys haven't seen it, go to this YouTube page, and it should be like the most, the maybe second recent video that I did. But he really gave a lot of information about the Winter Hill Gang, and he talked about Kevin Weeks, and of course, the guy I interviewed, he never was an informant. He went to prison, he did his time, but so he didn't like Kevin Weeks and Whitey Bulger. He was able to expand on them quite a bit. But Sean had said that Whitey Bulger was a lot worse than what people think. So the movies and stuff didn't do it justice coming from Sean. And
and people should know that Whitey Bulger was in Lewisburg Federal Penitentiary way back, I think in the early 70s, maybe late 60s. And he was there with guys like John Gotti was there at the same time, I believe 70, 71, like that. And also you had other famous prisoners there at the same time. Jimmy Hoffa was there. A couple of spies were there. Lewisburg was an interesting place, and the government sent the baddest of bad to Lewisburg, just to let people know.
Yeah, I mean, you were there at one point in your life too, with all them other guys. So you were doing some bad stuff and being around them. But so he was there way before you. He was he was older than you, I would imagine. Whitey Bulger.
A couple years old. I thought, I didn't know a lot about him. I read about him, but I thought that Johnny Depp did a good job. I think he
Yeah, I
played him,
think
right?
so. Yeah, he did a
Yeah,
damn good job. I thought
yeah,
that was
yeah.
pretty.
There was a lot of interest. I mean, at the end, people realized, there was nothing glamorous about gangsters. But remember, this guy was an Irish guy, and he was in Boston, and he had to work his way around the Italians. Now, there really wasn't that many Italian guys in the mob in Boston like New York. But
Right.
for some reason, he managed to control that one side of Boston. He
It's
controlled it.
strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange because he was able to just do so much stuff for so long, just like Greg
Yeah.
Scarpa. But I mean, you wrote a talk about the little article you wrote in Whitey Bulger's case when they got him.
I think I got an email or a call. I don't remember. Well, when he got busted in Santa Monica, and I was still in LA, and I said, people can look it up. My quote was, "Stand up, Whitey. Tell the truth." He refused to admit that he was an informant, and I guess he refused to admit that he was a gangster. But he had this, sort of false opinion of his own of himself, where he thought he was a good guy. He thought he was a stand-up criminal. He wouldn't ever admit that he was given information. So he gave information about criminals in general in Boston, then also about Italian guys. And this is the way he survived his life there. There was other guys like him, like Scarpa in New York. There was a guy in Cleveland. I'm trying to think of his name. He eventually got murdered. They did The Irishman. He was deep in that movie. So these guys worked both sides of the fence. And I always considered a guy like Willie Boy Johnson, an informant. They were pretty bright. They managed to dance around the mob, criminals, and dance around the government. So both these guys worked long term for the FBI. And the FBI agents, if you read about them, it's amazing. I think one guy's name was Conley down
Hmm.
there. Now, I think he's still in jail. I'm not sure. The one that was involved with Whitey Bulger. So the way Scorsese did that movie, The Departed, I believe it was loosely based on
Right,
Whitey
of
Bulger.
course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, too, I mean, with Greg Scarpa, I mean, when he would do these interviews with the public, he do a couple of them, of course, not a whole lot, but I mean, the deception in his voice and just the way that he's like, no, man, these people are lying.
yeah.
It's like he stayed calm. He was
Right,
able to just straight up sound like he was being, screwed over by the government and everything. Like
right.
he was just like had this, I don't know if you ever heard his voice. But it's like just deep, man, dark, and it's like he's just saying, no, I don't know these people. He's like, if that guy wasn't involved with the murder and
Yeah.
he's an informant, I ain't got nothing to do with me, man. You guys should go be going after him and stuff. It's like, oh my
And a
god.
lot of these guys, like Casso, like Scarpa, like Dominic Cataldo, I knew, like John Gotti, they have several sides of their personality. And when I spoke with Linda, and I hope we get Linda Scarpa to come on here, because when she was writing her book, I got a copy of the manuscript, like an
Mhm.
advance copy, and she told me all about her life with her dad. And in a weird way, if people know what the Stockholm syndrome is, when you get kidnapped, you're kidnapped by a criminal, yet you start to appreciate who the criminal is because they're sort of protecting you. And I think in an odd way, Linda Scarpa felt protected by her dad because if you read about some of the stuff the father did, nobody could touch Linda. He
Well,
outright killed a taxi driver, a gypsy cab driver, for just taking her off and about to rape her. So,
oh,
you
you
know,
knew that's what I was going to bring up, that because I heard that in her interview. She said that
yeah,
she got in the car one day and this guy tried to. It was her driver, that usually came around apparently. So I mean, they
right,
were kind of familiar with each other. But then, yeah, he tried to take her off and do that to her. So she told him, "Hey, no, I'll just come by after school." And then she ended up
right.
telling her dad, and then her dad, of course, got pissed and then went and took care of it. Is what he said to her. He said, "Yeah, you won't have to worry about him no more."
So he tracked down this taxi cab, gypsy cab driver, and when they killed him, poor Linda had to go back thinking, "Oh, I caused this man to be murdered."
Hmm.
And of course, the father had a strange way of justifying whatever he did. The guy didn't really touch her. He attempted to rape her, and then she was smart enough to talk him out of it. So that guy was murdered, and Linda had to live with it like forever. So in a weird way, she felt responsible for that guy's death. But on the flip side, she felt like, oh, my dad is always going to protect me.
Mm-hmm.
So I imagine living under that pressure as a young girl.
Yeah, so I mean, it does have flip sides because this guy tried to do that to her,
Right,
and then on top of that, now she's got to feel like that's her fault, but she didn't even have nothing to do with it. She didn't ask that, from either one of them, the guy or the dad. So it had to have had a major impact. But like I said, I guess I didn't tell people, but we did reach out to them both. Greg Scarpa Jr. and then Linda. I talked to both of them before, but we'll see if they want to come on. They come on, but.
Right.
That's up to them, but they both have stories they went through too.
And of course, I think that we can maybe examine the role of the government, the FBI, the way it was 30, 40, 50 years ago, and the way it is today, and the Greg Scarpa Jr., the life he lived. He's still alive, but he's not healthy. I believe he's got cancer. So if we can explain this type of behavior to our listeners, and it's like hit the bell, man, wake up. Crime is not glamorous. Crime is not glorious. In the end, you're going to sell your soul to crime, and you'll be a miserable person. Not everybody knows what it is to flip, to go against what you were taught. I was the kid, and I was taught the mob was beautiful and glamorous. Well, by the time I was 39, I knew it was going the other way. I mean, everybody was turning against each other, senseless murders. That was not where I wanted to be, certainly not what I wanted my children to see. So when somebody asked me, why did you go to the other side? I could explain that one day. Now, with Whitey Bulger, it took years and years for the government to come up and say, let's get this guy, because he was being protected by the FBI for a long time.
I know. So, I mean, they both have their treachery, so their ways that they were involved with stuff. But for us to really understand it, man, I mean, you would have understood the mentality back then on some kind of level, but I don't think we're supposed to. Like me, as a civilian and stuff, like I'm not supposed to understand, but we kind of try to depict it and decipher it and try to understand why. But I mean, that's what's interesting with you, because at one point in time, your mindset was. What was your mindset back in the mafia? When you were at home?
I left New York City in the fall of 81 and moved upstate New York early 82. I thought I was okay away from the mob. I had about $1 million in assets, and I bought this property, and I deluded myself thinking, I'll build this racetrack and I'll live off this racetrack. But in those days, not many people even knew what NASCAR was in 80, 81, 82. So I started to build a go-kart track, built a restaurant, a campground, and I remodeled a house there on the property. And eventually I figured I was going to have a NASCAR small track. I did manage to pull off 2 stock car races. I believe it was in the middle of 82 or 83. But there wasn't enough traffic up there in those days. We didn't have any promotion to promote a racetrack. So I was what we called going backwards. When you have money going out, I would say I was eating like a bird and I was pooping like an elephant. That's what I said. More money going out than coming in. Yeah. So eventually I sold all the jewelry I had. And we were sort of broke up there, what we called property poor. I had property, I had assets, but no money coming in. So I went back and sold some cocaine for a short time, got busted, and then looked at my life and said, I have to go another direction. So I didn't really intend on testifying against anybody. There was no Gotti case when I got arrested. It was 1984. I testified against a corrupt judge. But once the government gets you, and they hold you, they squeeze you. That's what they did. And you sign a contract, a thick contract. And if you don't read every line, you don't know what you're responsible for. So like the Whitey Bulger stuff, he didn't sign a contract. He had a relationship with I think one FBI agent, maybe another. And the stuff he did was very secretive. Don't forget, we're talking 40, 50 years ago. So eventually, you know, the FBI agent had to give the information on what he really was doing. That was the Bulger situation. On the other side, you had Scarpa. Now, if you go digging into Scarpa's life, and they were both vicious killers, by the way, he had an FBI agent that he was friends with. Linda Scarpa told me that FBI agent would come into the house and sit at the table and eat with them and hang out with them and joke with them. And he knew that Scarpa was killing people, but he didn't report it to the government. He was sort of part of it. So two criminals who thought they had a license, they thought they had a get out of jail free card. That's what I call it.
No.
When the public reads about them, you know, they could get this information. Then they could call us and ask us, what do you think of this? And what do you think of that? But again, when you flip and go to the other side, you better go to the other side 100%. We had guys who thought they were going to get a get out of free jail card, which was like Casso, but he kept lying to the government.
Doesn't work like that.
No, it didn't work, right? So with Scarpa, had he not got AIDS, who knows? He might have went on for another 15, 20 years killing people. Nobody knows how many people he killed. Okay.
No, well, what we'll do as well. Well, I'll tell the people well, first I'll ask if anybody got questions, please feel free. We're going to start going through these comments here.
Yeah.
Here in a couple minutes. So if you got any questions, just throw them in there. You want to send any super chats, anything you want to do, just let us know. Also, we got also please comment as well. Who would you rather hear me and Sal cover about? I ran a poll recently on the community tab, and the majority of people wanted to hear about Greg Scarpa and his story. So we'll probably end up going with that one. But let's see what we get in this chat. Let's see if people will vote for Greg Scarpa or Whitey Bulger.
Right.
But I plan on reading the whole book about Greg Scarpa, and then I gave Sal a book about Greg Scarpa as well, and then I got Linda Scarpa's book. So we're going to be doing the homework, man. There's a lot in there. So we'll talk about all them people.
The interesting thing about books, writers go do research, and little bits and pieces of information, pop up. And I happen to notice my close friend Cataldo was involved because, Scarpa was a Colombo guy. He was involved with all these guys. And when I read a little story about Casso, who had the bypass gang, people don't know what that is. Mm-hmm. And we're going to talk about guys who hit, secure locations where there was safe deposit boxes. I have a story from 66 we're going to do soon about a big robbery in Florida. Yeah. But, the thing about Casso was he included and he let other guys into the crew, the bypass gang. Mm-hmm. And I saw it on page 107 in that book you sent me, that Cataldo was involved in one of those bank robberies. I mean, it's really a burglary. So if you know the detail how they did it, they had very sophisticated thieves. Remember, these guys had a tunnel down, on a 4-day weekend, like a long holiday weekend, under the bank, get up into the bank, and then they had to break into the vault, and they would steal millions of dollars worth of stuff. And Casso was a mastermind at this stuff. So even though he was a vicious killer, he was pretty clever. He was a clever guy, as was Scarpa.
Yeah, and I sent you those notes that I found because next week we decided we're going to do a part 3. We did a part 1 and a part 2 on Casso, but part 3 we're going to cover the bypass gang, and then that'll be it. And we're going to move on to the next guy. But with that bypass gang, Sal, I sent you that whole outline. There's not a whole lot about that, but I was able to find enough to do a whole episode on it.
Right.
But I don't really think they got necessarily busted much with that whole bypass gang. I mean, Casso probably gave some information and stuff, and then
at the end,
and that's it was rumored that they had $100 million. They robbed $100 million worth of money. Yeah. So, but we can get to some of these questions and see what everybody votes in for who they want to hear about next. But
I wanted to make a point about safe deposit boxes.
Let's hear it.
Okay. So I had a couple of them back in the day, way back, and I knew people that had them. Everybody thinks because you have a bank and you have a safe deposit box that you're safe. You could put anything in there. I knew drug dealers who used to stash the heroin inside a bank safe deposit box.
That's
I'm telling
terrible.
you. Yeah, they did this stuff. So what I'm about to say is you have to understand the new laws. After 9/11, people should go look into the new laws of the Anti-Terrorist Act and all the stuff that they had. And at one point, the U.S. government had no option to go to Switzerland and get into people's bank accounts, get their names, numbers, and get into the vaults. But after 9/11, the government changed everything. I'm telling you,
Oh
people
yeah.
don't know this. And they can go into any safe deposit box and take the stuff out and say, hey, you know what? You're a tax cheat and we can arrest you. So I would suggest if you have legitimate money, maybe okay, put it in the box. But if anybody has some, illegal money, I certainly wouldn't put it in a safe deposit box.
Okay, let me go to these comments now. Because we're also gonna talk about our California trip here too. But let me fix my screen. There we go. Okay, so let's start with this first one. Let's see. So George says you have a pit bull and a Rottweiler. They both have rabies. Which one is the most dangerous? Well, probably both of them.
on any given day, either one of them could become treacherous. Again, if you raise the bull, maybe he's more treacherous than the Rottweiler. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, here's Dean.
Yeah, look at this.
Dean. Yeah, he's our Patreon subscriber. He said both with sick animals, hurting women and young girls too. Couple of beasts.
Yeah, I agree. It's a terrible thing, the stuff that they did, killing women. Oh my God.
Here's my buddy Ethan. He says, "Good morning, fellas. Good morning, Ethan.
Good morning. Good morning, guys."
Boris, he says, "No more shines, Billy." He just probably throwing in a comment.
They like to talk about that Goodfellas line.
Oh, I know. Scott says, "Good morning, guys." Good morning, Scott. Yeah. John Red, Junior Collins here. John. He said, "Good morning, guys."
Hi,
John.
Remember
you were asking about?
There's Jacqueline.
Jacqueline, yeah. You were asking about her last Sunday, yeah.
we missed you last week, Jacqueline.
Good morning. Here's old Bubbles. He says, "Good morning, fellas. Miss you guys already. We miss you too, man."
Joey Bubbles is working on our footage, our new website. We're going to get everybody up to speed on what Bubbles is doing. He's become a good producer. So, yeah.
I might as well just show you now that you mentioned that. The website. He sent me the link, and then he also sent me the flyer. So let me share my screen real quick. So here's the flyer, right? Tell me if you can see it. Right there. Can you see it?
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's the flyer they made for this new project Sal's been working on, that we went to California here.
Yeah. We got to tell everybody we're going to add to our merchandising soon. We're going to have some hats. We're going to have some shirts, some printed shirts. And we're going to have eventually Sinatra Club playing cards that they could play cards with. So tell them, we're going to let them know when all that stuff's coming.
Oh, yeah. Have you seen the website yet, Sal?
No, I didn't see it.
Well, yeah, here they're just getting a start on it, but this is what it looks like.
Very cool. Does our listeners know that we shot, a whole 2 days worth of analyzing Goodfellas? We should tell everybody.
We did a little bit last Sunday on our live of what we talked about, but I mean, you can give a little background if you want while I just play these pictures. You can go ahead.
Yeah, out of the blue, there was a producer director in New York. He started looking at our podcast, and then he contacted us and said if I was interested in covering movies, crime movies, from my point of view. I mean, he knew that the government had established me in 1986 at the Gotti trial as an expert on crime. So he wanted my opinions. So, we'd watch Goodfellas, and then there would be questions about it. I would answer from my point of view what I thought was real, what wasn't real. And of course, I knew those guys. So for the first movie that we covered, we did 2 days worth of interviews. So again, that'll be edited down. And I don't know exactly if it's going to turn into a television show. I'm not sure what it could be. But as we move ahead, they'll put it together, and we'll see what David Zucker is the name of the producer. director from New York. So he's got all the footage, and Adrian was there. We were in Beverly Hills. We had some fun. We spent 2 days, and it was a good experience for everybody.
Yeah, it was a good time, man. It was really fun. That's where old Bubbles was the director on, or main producer
Producer.
as well on set. Yeah, so that was pretty
We
cool,
should let
man. Getting to
everybody.
meet
We
him.
should let everybody know, Adrian, which movie would you like us to cover, and then eventually
Oh,
we'll start covering other movies. Like I'm thinking of Donnie Brasco, movies like
or
that.
Scarface, or
Scarface, of
Scarface.
course. Right.
Yeah. Let's see. So let's get back on here. Eddie, your old neighbor, he says good morning from Howard Beach.
Oh
One
yeah.
one four one four. Your
I
old
see.
neighbor.
I see that zip code there, Eddie.
Let's see. Pasquale says good morning, Adrian and new bots. Thanks for tuning
All
in,
right.
Pasquale.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, here's Miss Bubbles here. Look at, she changed her picture. You see it? Or maybe she
Yeah.
always had that. I don't know if she had her makeup. She's
Does
doing makeup
everybody know Mrs. Bubbles is CC, and she did hair and makeup, and we
for
had
you.
fun. We did have a lot of fun with them.
Yeah, last Sunday's live, she was on there while putting makeup all over Sal. That was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Let's see. Leon says good morning,
Leon,
everyone.
cool.
Remember, he told us a little bit about Whitey Bulger. He
Oh,
was in
here you
prison with
go.
him. He said, when I was in prison with Whitey Bulger, when we first became friends, he let me hold on to his paperwork overnight in my cell. Shocked. A lot of my
Pals
pals and
and
cellies. Yeah,
cellies. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
damn. Sure, there's a lot in there,
Maybe
man.
he'll tell us more about how personal he was with Whitey.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure, man. He's probably got a lot more stories with him.
Yeah.
Let's see. Lee says they were a pair of scumbags. And then Leon says Jack Nicholson in The Depart scared me more than the real old 86-year-old Whitey Bulger in the wheelchairs.
Right. Yeah. Jack's a great actor, man. So, I mean, I'm sure, as people know, some actors really dig into who the character is. And I thought he was amazing. All his exchanges with Leo were great. I mean, you're talking about a career criminal. So Jack has played a lot of great characters, and I thought he did a great job on that one.
JW said AIDS definitely stopped Scarpa.
Yeah, when you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Isn't that what they say?
Oh, yeah. Or the
He got
gun.
sick.
Each
Yeah.
one. John says, hey, Sal and Adrian from Ozone Park. HB here.
Howard
Howard
Beach.
Beach.
Yeah.
Howard Beach,
Yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
Eddie says, Sal, the old neighborhood is shot. So sad.
Yeah, I'll bet. I mean, my wife and I went there a couple of years ago. We stopped to get a Starbucks coffee, and she was in line with two guys. I was sitting in the corner, and they recognized me and come over and said, hello, we know who you are. They were Italian Goombas.
Oh, they weren't after you.
No, they just smiled and said,
We know you.
yeah, funny.
Let's see. Scarpa got convicted from ratting out some people, and some came back to himself, ratted on himself.
Yeah, he lived a very crazy life. And I think what I have to say about him was the effect that he had on all his family. I mean, think about it. His young son, Joey, was killed. The other son went to jail and got cancer. Linda is scarred for life. We'd like to get Linda and Greg Jr. on, and they could tell their own story with their words. So I think people will understand, that it's a miserable, terrible life, and it's only sort of, glossed over by the fancy cars, the money, but it's really not worth it.
Right. Let's see. Leon says, if you guys give me the link, I can give you some more information from the story that Whitey told him in prison. Well, let's go through all these comments first, and
Yeah, that'd
we'll
be a
see
good
where we're
one.
at. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to get to everybody first and
Okay.
see if we got anything else to talk about.
John Kennedy.
He says, hey, Sally.
Hi.
Let's see. Sal, did you know Tommy Ghost is what Mobland asked?
I didn't know who Tommy Ghost was. No.
What family was he with and what
Yeah.
crew? Maybe they give us some more information. JW says the Winter Hill gang had a lot of killers.
Oh, that was Boston. Yeah, they were bad dudes.
remember you were talking about the guy from Cleveland
Yeah,
earlier.
Danny
Yeah.
Green. That's
Yeah.
right. My wife's got relatives up in Cleveland, and the guy was really intrepid. He wasn't scared of anybody. He'd stand outside with his shirt off, if you remember, looking at interviews and stuff. And eventually, they found out he was the double working. So yeah,
Yeah, you never know, man. Who's working for what?
right.
Let's see. The driver ripped off her shirt trying to take it off. He's
That's
talking about
Linda.
Linda.
Yeah, yeah, Linda Scarpa. Yep.
Yeah, that is pretty sick, man.
Yeah.
Tatone says Sal and Adrian. Peace.
All right. Tatone.
Thanks for tuning in. Let's see. How do you say
Oops.
that? Rubesy? Rubesy?
Good morning, Adrian and Sal. Well, good morning there.
Good morning.
Whoopsie.
JW says so many similarities with Scarpa, Whitey, Danny Green, and many others we don't know about.
Right, right. It was a time when the government was sort of in bed with all these guys. And everybody should know back in the day, we're talking 70s, if an FBI had an undercover informant or a cooperating witness, he didn't share that information with other FBI agents. It was very, very secretive. That's the way it was. So when you say the FBI, maybe there was 3,000 FBI agents in New York City, they didn't share information. I learned that from my association with some agents.
That's what I'm saying. You just don't know. I mean, some of these guys, they really had to keep it on the down low, man.
Right, right.
Not they get in some deep trouble, man.
Right.
Let's see. Sal, did you ever know NHRA racing back then, too?
Not really. I didn't get involved in drag. That's drag racing. I was involved in stock cars, sports cars, open wheel racing, go-karts, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I got maybe later I'll put this picture up of old Bill Minkin just as a joke. He said he might watch the live. He was let's see. Pete says, any info on what Scarpa was doing in the first Profaci Gallo War? You know?
Well, he must have been doing some killing. I mean, that's what he lived for. I mean, in a strange way, how can a guy get up every day and just think about killing people? I mean, really. Of course, I was young during that time. That's 60s. But Cataldo was involved with all those guys. So I heard a lot of stories. I mean, Cataldo told me one story about Carmine Persico. Why did they call him the Snake?
Oh, yeah.
He actually disguised himself and let his beard grow and wore dirty clothes, laying in the street like a homeless guy. And then he went and killed somebody. So he was a pretty good actor, that Carmine Persico.
Damn, man. That is, yeah, I guess those are the guys you were around, the Columbos, man. Profaci's before, and then they turned to the Columbo, changed the name. John Wolf says Scarpa gave his handlers millions of dollars.
Yeah, I don't know.
Pete read the FBI vault. Read the FBI vault.
Yeah, read the FBI, yeah.
Let's see.
A lot of comments.
Yeah, we do, man. That's why I said we should get to them before anything else. Let's see.
70s.
Yeah, do you know what that is?
Yeah. No, I didn't know the Smokey Burnout, but I guess he was up there in Boston. Jungle Jim. Maybe he'll tell us more about this.
John says little Linda is somewhat unstable. She had a bad fight with Greg Jr. this Christmas because he had unable to meet with her for the holiday as well. Yeah, I don't know where they might have heard that from, but I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, somebody got information because I know she told me Greg Jr. when he got out was going to live with her. And, it's still family. I don't know if Big Linda is down there with her mother, but when I talked to Linda Scarpa, she had young twins. Now they're probably, they're probably 18, 19, 20, something like that. And she had kids. And I think she worked in New York selling liquor or something when I talked to her. That's a good, 12 years ago, I think, 10, 12 years ago.
Let me see. There's some of these people who are just talking about each other back and forth on here. Are the Gallows the Gallo wines? He said.
No, different group, different state. California versus New York, different Gallows.
Yeah, I'm not. Well, it doesn't hurt to ask. He said if Tommy and Foxy had a fist fight, who would have won? I think we got a question from that before.
Foxy was a brawler. We were in several fights in bars. One day I'll tell you a story how he almost got killed by some Colombians. I
Some
don't know if
Colombians.
did I tell you that story?
I don't know.
Going into the
No,
bar with the guns.
no, I don't think so.
I may tell that story. But Foxy was a brawler. Tommy wasn't a fighter. He was a killer. Difference, he would kill rather than fight.
This one is from Boris. He said, "Who would have beaten up Tommy Crotty in the '80s?" Is there another fight question?
I don't know. I guess he was a pretty tough guy. He's still alive.
Yeah.
He's
Well,
an
you
artist. He's an artist in prison.
didn't you? You had some. Do you want to talk about your another project with? Or are you keeping that under the whole football one? Maybe.
No, we're working on that. That's a movie. We're working on a movie presentation. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. Let's see. Did Sal ever hear of the Pontiac, or did I say that right? Pontiac brothers from Pleasant View. You knew
I
them?
think there was the Joe Pontiac. I didn't know them, but I was in jail with half a dozen of the Pleasant Avenue guys. The guys from the whole Fat GG, Ernie Boy, Echoes, what was his name? He became underboss.
Pioneer.
He just died. All those guys from Pleasant Avenue, they were all East Harlem guys. I think I might have heard about Pontiac, but I didn't know him. He probably could tell us, Pasquale.
Tony says, did Sal work with or know any about the K&A gangs out of Philly in the 70s or 80s?
No, we had enough going on in Brooklyn and Queens. I didn't get out there to Philadelphia, but mob guys in Brooklyn and Queens, we always thought guys in Philadelphia were a bunch of farmers. Well, they showed us that wasn't so. They were killing left and right there with that group.
Oh yeah. You ever been to Canada? The Tatone wanted to know.
Yeah, I went up to Canada a few times, not for crime though. I'd go up to Toronto. I'd go up to the Molson races. Yeah, just for fun. I didn't take part in crime up there.
Slice says, did Sal ever go to Las Vegas with the boys in the 70s? How was it back then?
Yeah. I should talk about our connection in New York City with a guy named Big Julie. He would set up what we call junkets. We would leave, Cataldo and I would leave New York City in the 70s, didn't even have to have money. When we got to Vegas, we had chips, like 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. And how it worked is we left the money in New York with Big Julie. And if we lost, we had to bring him more money. But if we won, we weren't allowed to cash the chips that we got in Vegas and take the cash home. But once in a while, we paid a couple of young, working, professional women to cash the chips for us. So, yeah, it was a whole different life in the 70s. You had your own pit boss. It was kind of fun. Yeah, that was good fun.
He also said Mean Streets would be a good movie to cover Sal's era for sure.
Yeah, I worked with the guy who wrote it, Mardik Martin. I worked with him, Mean Streets. Yeah, I have the script. And, it was the early De Niro movie. It was well done. It's a little insight to Scorsese's, knowledge of what was happening in the mob in the 60s, late 60s, early 70s. Good movie.
Says from Fat Dave, he says, good day, fellas, watching from England, UK. Damn.
All right.
So, thanks for tuning in, man.
Tell those people in the UK we like them.
Yeah, no shit. There's old Bobby, or another good Patreon subscriber, man, right there. He says, hey, fellas.
Good morning, Bobby.
Dean says, good morning, fellas. Love the show. Sal's has a natural way of, telling stories.
Cool, man. Tell your friends, Dean. We need more people on here. We want to start doing a little survey on what you guys want us to cover.
Here's one. Says FBI sent Scarpa down to the south to find the bodies of the people that the KKK killed in the 60s. He kidnapped a TV store owner and located all three bodies. Damn.
Yeah, the stories are amazing. I mean, remember at that time, J. Edgar Hoover was the FBI director, and if you know anything about what his position was, he always said there wasn't an American mafia, but he knew who Scarpa was, and Scarpa went down there a couple of times and scared the you know what out of those white supremacist, racist killers. And then he got the information. He did get it.
Yeah. Let's see. So I interviewed this Chicky Chickatelli right here, man. I mean, he's always been cool with me and everything, and so it's not really getting involved with drama or nothing. But he was a bookie for the out in Springfield for the Genovese family, so he has a couple things he wanted to ask you. So he said, Freddie was a dear friend of mine, and he was no maniac. He was a true gentleman who hated informants. Whitey was a low-life woman killer. Sal, why doesn't any of the Gottis remember you?
Oh, come on. Gene Gotti's alive. Go ask him. He remembers me. Ask him about the fight I had with Redbird. Listen, that's stuff that you read online. It's not very accurate. I was in that Bergen every other day for 2 or 3 years. So where that information comes, I don't know. Even the daughter said, oh, Sal didn't know my dad. Well, that's a bunch of nonsense. People just want to gloss over and give their opinion. What I talk about is 99 and 44/100ths truth, and that's it. I don't know about the Gottis remembering me. Who's left? Peter's dead. John's dead. Okay, Gene Gotti's left. I don't know about Vinny and Richie. I knew them all. Come on, guys.
Let's see. Did you know what side Scarpa was on the first Colombo War?
I have no clue.
I don't either, man. But he would have, there's only a couple to really take, either Profacis or who was he going against back then? Gallo, yeah, Gallo, I think it was. Let's see. Good morning, fellas. Love the show and Sal's natural way of telling stories. Some in the crime element get too detailed and end up losing the gist of the original story. Well done, guys.
Thanks, yeah, we try to give you accurate information. Don't glamorize it. We don't sugarcoat it. We just tell you how it was.
Yeah. Let's see. Joey B from the Bronx says, hey, guys, great show. Thanks, Joey. Or Johnny, my bad.
Johnny be good.
Johnny be good. Let's see.
Wow, look at this. That guy worked for 3 people that were killed in Mississippi.
Damn,
wow.
Man.
Interesting.
Douglas here says, Sal, I do believe you. You were on the stand. It's documented history. It's all there, man.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I know. Well, we know that. I mean, it's just other people in their shows and stuff. They make their remarks and stuff, and then people that are young like my age. I mean, they're just going to listen to whatever they hear. I mean, if they're not actually reading documents and going into stories. I mean, you seen the Get Gotti documentary. I mean, you had all these law enforcement people that were standing up, I guess, behind you, or saying, "Oh, Sal was in court. He did this." So I get it, man. Parachute. Speaking of that, he said, "When's Ed McDonald coming on?" So
we got to get him on. I got to give him a call this week. I mean, he's busy. He's writing a new book, but he always takes my calls. We talk, and we developed a friendship in 39 years. This year, I met him September, 40 years ago.
40 years ago now.
40 years ago.
September. Yeah, so it's coming up, man. You never always stayed in touch with him. He said every year.
Yeah, I stayed in touch with him.
Well, what with our show now, I mean, for going into February, it looks like we'll probably be covering a lot of the Greg Scarpa shows.
Right.
Or we'll probably be doing maybe a part 1 and part 2 about him.
Yeah.
And then Linda Scarpa and then Greg Scarpa Jr. And just because they all got their own insane story about how their impact on their father was, and then
maybe we'll do a poll on how many people think that even if Donald Trump is convicted of a crime, that he's going to get elected. I would like to see the results of that poll. Maybe we can get more people to come on and talk about it. Does the country need Donald Trump again? I don't know. I can't answer that question, but I'm interested on what's going to happen. Who's going to be the leader of our country next year at this time? We only got 10 months before the election. So we're interested. Maybe we'll do a poll, Adrian.
Yeah, we can do that. You guys can even comment too what your thoughts are on that. But we can definitely run a poll. I'll show you this picture, Sal. It's pretty funny. I already showed you, but we could talk about a little bit more about California after I show
Yeah.
you this one. our
That's Bill.
dear friend Bill Mencken, man.
That's my friend Bill Mencken.
Oh, Mencken, yeah.
Funny guy, man. Met him over 30 years ago. He spent 20 years and 30 years in film and radio. I mean, he saw all kinds of things in New York. So interesting guy.
Yeah, he is pretty cool, man. I mean, he was really, excited to, me going to meet with him, and we had an interview. We haven't posted it or anything yet. I want to go through and edit it and stuff, but yeah, it was pretty cool, man. Chatting with him and seeing his whole walls and everything he had of all these celebrities.
Did
all
you
kinds
take pictures of his house?
Yeah, he's got them on his phone. He just got to send them to me because mine ran out of storage or was acting kind of weird because I took so many damn pictures while we were over there.
Yeah, he's a very funny guy, man. Got great stories about De Niro and Harvey Keitel and Scorsese and all the people he knew in New York, during the film business in the 60s and 70s. He was in all those movies, man. King of Comedy, Raging Bull, Mean Streets. He was in those movies. It's pretty amazing.
Here's another picture of me, you, and Bubbles when you first arrived, and JR. Yeah, that was fun. We're gonna have next Saturday. What will be posted for our weekly episode is me and you doing our sit down. So people will watch that when we're in the hotel room doing an interview. So people can look forward to that. Right. We talk about the unreleased documentary, the U-Bots one, and the last interview that Henry Hill did is on that show before you died and before he passed away. And then we talk about the whole Bone Thugs encounter with you and them. And so people can look forward to that. But again, too, if you guys haven't got a chance to see all of our shows, there is a lot on there. We've probably got 50 so episodes altogether. We got the live episodes we done. We got 25 of them. So you go to our YouTube channel, you go to the playlist, and you click Sal and Adrian's live shows, and you can click on that. Same thing with A Lifetime of Mafia Tales podcast. We got 32 episodes up on there now. So if you haven't seen them, you can definitely check them out. I'm just sending out a reminder so people can. Well, it's pretty easy to access them because sometimes the episodes they only show the recent ones, so you got to go to the playlist, and it'll take you back to all the other shows we've done in the past.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's not, it's not easy. I have to dig back in my memory and be as accurate as I can. I don't embellish. I don't create stories that didn't happen. I have a bunch more left. I'm holding back for a while, and we're going to do many more.
Yeah, I mean, for coming up, we're going to cover Scarpa and then probably Whitey Bulger, and then after that, we'll just see what comes to mind, man. It just kind of just going by ear, but with this whole new year, we wanted to really cover crime in America. So, I mean, this is older crime and all that. So it was, what was going on back then. But we really tried to dissect why these people were the way they were. Yeah. So I haven't read a whole lot about Greg Scarpa's upbringing, but I know that his father was like a coal mine worker or something like that, something hard labor. But he was working with them for a while, and I think that's maybe not the route he wanted to go, seeing how he was going that way, but who knows, man?
Yeah.
Do you I'll play our little advertisement too before we close out if you ain't got anything else, Sal, you want to add in today?
No, just tell all your friends to listen so we can get more coverage, more information, and it can become entertaining. I'd like to focus on a few of the issues that we face in America today, which is criminal justice reform. Maybe we can help get some of those people out of jail and get them back to being productive members of society. I mean, I will tell you, 39 years ago, I went to Texas and started a whole life over and never once went back to crime. Not one time. No guns, no crime, no criminals. And that's how I lived. So I was challenged to do things legitimately, and I was very blessed. Made a bunch of money in all kinds of businesses. It's been fun.
Oh yeah, man. We got to talk about that Operation Director's Cut too, where you almost got dragged into laundering money for some people out in California.
Almost. Yeah, we got that story to do.
Well, here's the little advertisement before we close out. podcast, we got a few items that you can purchase. All of these items can be found in the video description below. The first one is Sal's book, The Sinatra Club. You can get this personally autographed by Sal. The next one in our hottest seller is the 1972 Sinatra Club playing cards. Back in Sal's Mafia days, he opened up his own social club named the Sinatra Club. Many mobsters would come to this club, even when there were all-out wars going on between different families. They would come to the Sinatra Club and play cards. Some of the mobsters that played with these cards were John Gotti, Dominic Cataldo, Tommy DeSimone, Foxy, Jimmy Burke, Willie Boy Johnson, Tony Roach, Henry Hill, Joe DeFede, Danny Fatico, Gene Gotti, Peter Gotti, Joey Scopo, and many more. We're selling each one of these cards for $10 a piece. These cards are limited, we only got 1,000 of them. The next item is an autographed picture of Sal from his Mafia days. Another item is the Dinner with the Mobster card. You can get this autographed as well. This was an event that Sal had hosted in the past. We also got the Ubot's production ticket from an event that Sal had hosted. This is also autographed. The last item we got to offer is Sal's book, The Sins of the Father. Again, you can find all these items in the video description below. Hopefully we'll be adding more to that, man, here soon.
Yeah, pretty good.
Some more merchandise and stuff.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, thank you everyone for watching. We appreciate it. And then just stay tuned. Next week we'll have some more videos coming out. We'll do our live again, and I'll be posting next week. I'll post an interview that I did with a man named Tommy Harding, who was a mob enforcer. He was a debt collector, collected money and stuff for some of the guys, different organized groups as well. So he's got a good redemption story on top of that. But other than that, Sal, we're out of here, man.
All right, good. Thank you, Adrian.